What's up, guys?
My name is Alexandra Castañeda.
I'm Janine Mejia.
And I'm Erica Mitoraha.
And I'm Fatima Vergara.
And I'm Julina Aquino.
From the College of Financial Management. In this video, we are going to explain and explore the literature during the contemporary period in the late 20th century under martial law.
When we say contemporary literature, it is the literature of the contemporary period not only refers to a quality, style of writing, but also to a poetry and prose, which includes works of fiction such as novels, novellas, essays, and dramatic works. With the declaration of Presidential Decree 1081 on September 21, 1972, many publications and mass media outfits were shut down. Filipino writers started to use their writings to explore socio-political realities. The tradition of protest has always been a potent force in the production of social committed writings. As a number of critics such as Bienvenido Lumbera and Epifanio San Juan Jr. have argued, the 1970s, for example, witnessed the proliferations of poems, short stories, and novels which grappled with the burning issues of the times. In a large number of magazines and journals, writers in both English and Filipino face the problems of exploitation and injustice, and appropriate these realities as the only relevant materials for their fiction. In effect, writers such as Ricardo Lee, Virgilio Almario, Efren Abueg, Ave Perez Jacob, and Dominador Mirasol produced a large number of texts that were profoundly disturbing, even as these works zeroed in on various forms of repressions and violence.
Here's a short video about the martial law from the YouTube channel of National Historical Commission of the Philippines. They presented and explained the different events during this time.
I signed Proclamation number 1081 placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
Ipinailalim ang buong Pilipinas sa batas militar. Bunga ito ng maraming taon ng pagtatago, pag-uusap at pagpaplano ni Pangulong Marcos at ilang katiwalang militar at politiko. Sinindak nilang lahat sa banta ng komunismo at lumikha ng takot at gulo sa buong bansa. 14 na taon ng kapangyarihang walang pakundangan. Higit 50,000 tao ang inaresto at ikinulong. Marami sa kanilang pinahirapan na parang hayop, pinatay na walang kaso at binura sa buhay at alaala. Pari, madre, estudyante, magsasaka, manggagawa, maralitang tagalungsod, mamamahayag, abogado, guro, politiko. Sarado ang Kongreso at ang mga hukuman at inilipat lahat ng kapangyarihan kay Marcos. Bawal ang malayang pagpapahayag at sarado ang media. Ipinatupad ang pambansang curfew. Bawal ang rally, demonstrasyon, pulong, strike, picket at iba pang pagtitipon. Kanselado ang paglipad ng mga eroplano at hinigpitan ang paglakbay sa labas ng bansa. Nabuo ang kapit ng batas militar. At kahit nagwakas ito noong 1986, patuloy ang pagkapit ng Pangulong Marcos sa ganap na kapangyarihan.
In the underground press, writers used pen names. Illegal organizations or groups published the works which they had to distribute under the radar. Those caught with such publications could be held in detention or imprisoned, tortured, and even killed. Philippine literature during martial law had common themes because the government took and controlled all privately owned newspapers, magazines, radio, television facilities, and all other media communications. During the time of Marcos, if you were part of his administration and you yourself was against everything he did, you had no choice but to simply comply with his rules. During his time, it was somewhat I kill or to be killed situation. It was either you work for them or go against them. Literature broadly is any collection of written work that allows people to interpret their thoughts, opinions, emotions, and even the slice of their life. Basically, it is a medium used to express feelings through art form. Their messages are conveyed in a creative manner. Literature has been around since an individual discovered writing, and it was one thing that plays a big part of our life up until now, that people use this in various forms with different means. During Marcos' regimentation, there were different forms of literature that were being used. These forms that the journalists use include prison literature, protest literature, proletarian literature, and circumvention literature. The journalists use this as their weapons, but they suffer at the end. One of the literary works that time is protest literature, referred as revolutionary literature, mainly all about engagement, combat, committed, resistance, socially conscious literature.
Another example of literary works during the late 20th century under martial law is the proletarian literature. First, let me define what is proletarian literature. It is a literature created by, about, or for members of the working class, focused on working class issues and usually conveying an anti-capitalist and pro-socialist message. It was Salvador P. Lopez who first defined proletarian literature, or writing from the working class during the Commonwealth period, the period before the war characterized by labor and peasant unrest. Epifanio San Juan Jr. is a Filipino activist, poet, writer, video or filmmaker, and editor. He is the author of several books on race and cultural studies, and published the literary writings of Carlos Bulosan, a Filipino labor organizer and writer. His Carlos Bulosan and the Imagination of the Class Struggle was the first full-length critical assessment of Bulosan's works. Epifanio San Juan Jr.'s Carlos Bulosan and the Imagination of the Class Struggle, or CBICS, was a crucial act of rescue published in 1972, just a few weeks before Marcos declared martial law. CBICS revisited and assessed the poetry, fiction, and private correspondence of Carlos Bulosan, the most prolific Filipino writer of peasant origins, to save him and his work from obscurity and misappropriation. Next is prison literature. Prison literature is a literary genre characterized by literature that is written while the author is confined in a location against his or her will, such as a prison, jail, or house arrest. The literature can be about prison, informed by it, or simply coincidentally written while in prison. It could be fiction or non-fiction. There are themes in prison literature. Critical issues relating to prison literature include how the writers represent their sufferings, experiences, and emotions during incarceration, their strategies of survival, and how prison literature reveals hidden violations of human rights while resisting official discourse and serving other functions in society. Other example of literary works during this time is the circumvention literature. Circumvention literature is a literary works that express social and political transgression or offense through metaphors, allegories, symbolism, and etc. Borrowing a theater term from Bienvenido Lumbera, he said that literature of circumvention, prevalent from 1972 to 1983, was the artist's way of talking about and speaking the truth. Here's another short video from the YouTube channel of Rappler explaining on what will happen if martial law is still in effect today.
What if the EDSA People Power Revolution never happened? And dictator Ferdinand Marcos was never overthrown? What if martial law is still in effect today? Normal then is very different from normal now. Everything looks modern in first world. There's a boom in infrastructure with brand new roads and tall skyscrapers. But sometimes when you drive along the highway, you can't help but notice what's behind the walls. Even the economy is on the rise. You notice your neighbor's fancy cars, flashy clothes, and expensive jewelry. You heard they're close to the powers that be. School is enjoyable too, except your history lessons seem a bit odd. Your teachers keep on harping about the new society. You don't quite get it, but they must be right. After all, your books are all government approved. Cafeteria food can use some improvement though. Your sister's sick of eating Nutribud every day. But not everything's so serious in today's new society. You also know how to have fun. The state says everyone's safety and security is its priority, so you can only be outside till 11 p.m. You have to follow the rules, unless you want to be detained by the Metrocom for breaking curfew. And no, you can't criticize the government on your blog or on Facebook or Twitter. The government doesn't like that. Internet speed is super fast, but access to many sites are either blocked or limited. So to pass the time, you try to watch your favorite movie or series. All reruns of government-approved films and shows, of course, but you already watched all of them. The cool movies you heard are banned. Suddenly, your best friend's mom calls you because they haven't heard from him since the other night. You text your other friends, who tell you they haven't heard from him either. You get worried. You hope he didn't do anything stupid, but your gut tells you you'll never hear from him ever again.
Ponciano B. Peralta Pineda is a Filipino writer, teacher, linguist, and lawyer. Ponciano Pineda is considered as the father of the Commission on Filipino Language for his promotion to establish a commission based on Section 9 of our Philippine Constitution. He became Director of Commission on the Filipino Language, formerly Surian ng Wikang Pambansa, during the year 1971 to 1999. Under his leadership, Pineda started social-linguistic research to further widen the Filipino language. Also, one of these is about the orthographic reform in the Filipino language. Under Pineda, one major change is one language policy. A bilingual education in the year 1974, Filipino as national and primary language of Filipinos in 1983, and the Filipino alphabet comprising 28 letters in 1987. He established 12 regional centers of the Filipino language throughout the Philippines. Besides being the author of academic books, Pineda is also a Filipinologist or an expert in Filipino culture. Among his literary works are Pagpupulong, Mga Tuntunin at Pamamaraan, Pandalubhasang Sining ng Komunikasyon, and Sining ng Komunikasyon para sa Mataas na Paaralan. Anicento Silvestre, an activist, he won Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Poetry in Filipino because of his works. Ang kanyang mga tula na naitipon sa Katipunang Kalikasan ay pinangpangkat-pangkat sa 8. Malaya, Maalindog, Larawan ng Buhay, Pintig ng Pag-ibig, Tatag ng Pananalig, Tanda ng Pag-asa, Bukas sa Landas ng Kadakilaan, at Dugo sa Ningning ng Araw. Bienvenido Ramos, a Filipino poet who contributed to Liwayway, Ilang-Ilang, and other magazines with his revolutionary poems. Kamaong Acero 1981, Tomcat 1979, and Mucho Dinero 1959. Jose Y. Dalisay Jr. is a professor of English and creative writing at the University of the Philippines and has published more than 25 books of fiction and non-fiction, plus numerous plays and screenplays. His second novel, Soledad's Sister, was shortlisted for the inaugural Man Asian Literary Prize, and he has won 16 Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature. In addition to his home country, Dalisay's books have been published in the United States, Italy, France, and Spain. After graduating from the University of the Philippines, he went on to receive his MFA in creative writing from the University of Michigan and PhD in English from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He has been a Fulbright, Rockefeller Foundation, British Council, David T.K. Wong, Hawthorne Den Castle, and Civitella Ranieri Foundation Fellow.
Literary styles and themes. Themes of the most poem dealt with the patient regard for native culture, customs, and beauties of natures and surrounding. And Filipinos face the problem of the exploitation and injustice and appropriated these realities as the only relevant materials for their fiction. Rare examples. Prometheus Advan is a four-act lyrical drama by Percy Bysshe Shelley. First published in 1820, it is the concern with the torments of the Greek mythological figure Prometheus, who defies the gods and gives fire to humanity, for which is the subjected to eternal punish and suffering at the hands of Zeus. Prison literature. Journalists and prominent political opposition figures were the first to be ensnared in the dragnet cast by the Marcos intelligence and police apparatus, followed by militant activities. Includes academics who were also noted for their critical literary writings. Of This Quiet by Jose F. Lacaba, born in 1945, is the youngest of the three poets. He wrote journalism in English in the 60s, having abandoned college, and gone to work as a copy editor and proofreader at the Philippine Free Press. His Days of This Quiet Night of the Rage is an on-the-ground narrative of the protests, demonstrations, and riots that preceded in imposition of martial law in 1972. An Underground Tale by Benjamin Pimentel. Head cop had been died before I became an activist in 1983 at the height of massive nation protests against the assassination of Benigno Aquino. His name reverberated loudly even then. I remember shouting his name in rallies and in a street place where I got to indulge by amateur theatrical artistic side, katarungan para kay Johnny Escandor, Bobby De La Paz, Edgar Jobson. We hallowed while emoting, affecting a grim look and feeling our fists in the air.
In this video, we are going to explore... In this video, we are going... Wait lang.